I missed the point? Did I miss the first point? Okay. It's such a pleasure being here. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Erica Wells Cox, as we know, EWC. And I'm here with Candelaria. She's also here this afternoon. She couldn't be here on Thursday. Our guest this evening, on Monday, we can stop the tone now. Thanks. Our guest, there he is. Our guest this evening, later on, is going to be Mike Alexio. He's a hard person to deal with. He's in the other room. And, of course, Carlos Palacios, which, if you don't know that word, if you see it, it's going to be hard to pronounce. So you would say something like Palacios, I think you would say. So that stereo on in there? It'll be on in a bit, I guess. So we're here talking. So he didn't hear me call him a hard ass, right? Okay, well, I want you to turn it on so he can hear that. So EWC, how you doing?
I'm well. I missed Monday.
You did. We had Tashina.
Yes.
She's a handful. All she wanted to do was talk about her boobs. That's all she wanted to do.
Really?
I made one little simple allusion about her.
What?
I made one allusion to the fact that I see she's getting back to pre-baby form.
Right.
And then she started. And women can do something that men can't do. They can touch themselves.
We can do many things.
Well, that's true.
Right.
That's true. That's okay. They can
you
go
can't
like
touch yourself.
You can't
Well,
touch
they can
Men
do
touch
that.
themselves all the
Yeah,
time.
but it's like it's not a.
Adjusting? No.
It's
No,
an adjustment.
let me make sure it's still there.
I am not sure what road we're going down right now.
It doesn't matter. There are many roads.
But men
Now-
touch themselves.
So anyway, so she was your colleague at the Pooks was very big on her boobs. So I don't know where she and it was surprising for me because the Tashina I knew, I think it must be some new hormone must have got injected during the pregnancy cycle because the Tashina I knew before was very reserved, very.
Well, I'm surprised to hear this too.
Oh, see, she's opening up.
And her office is right next to mine.
Is she generally prudish in the environment that you're in?
Very reserved.
Very reserved. I said prude, you said reserved. Okay.
Get to the-
Right. So you see, I don't like these words you're using to describe
Here
these
we
women.
go with the English accent.
So, but it was all good fun. Who did we have on, Kendrick?
Renard,
Renard,
sorry.
and John Bostwick. It was post. You know what I find interesting, and I've gone through this many times. You build up to an event, okay? You build up to an event, and I think I actually experienced this even with this event. There's a lot of build up, and then it's like
It's
you go into like a depression
Afterwards.
because it's like something's missing. Because you in life you normally just kind of like
Right.
flatlined, right?
Right.
And then there are times when you just
That's what I felt
soaring,
at the Olympics.
and then afterwards it's kind of like, okay, now what do I do?
Gotta come down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I felt like that after the Olympics.
After the Olympics.
Oh yeah.
why
Like,
were
what
you
do I do
involved
now?
personally with the
There's
Olympics?
nothing to watch.
You did a
You mean
sport.
Watching the television.
Watch it, like,
Watching the
the
sport got you
sports,
it's
like-
that high.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. I used to love watching the inspirational stories.
No, that's the part I hate. I do
Oh my
not
God.
like them.
That's the best
I
part.
used to like the up close and personal. I don't like
Oh
it
my
anymore. You know
goodness,
why?
I love them.
I know
And you're
that you
sitting there
didn't take this
crying.
footage
You're like,
accidentally. Okay, that's what I'm thinking. It's a
very,
setup.
It's very canned. It's very
Yes, we
deliberate.
know.
And I'm beginning to want. I watch like The Voice. I like that. I like the singing.
Okay.
I like America's Got Talent. I like the show. I despise the commentary in between. First of all, everyone's mother had cancer. It's as if you have to put on the form. If you're going to be in the show, have your mother or someone have a disease. This is what they talk about.
And whoever they feature is going to do something. Either they're going to get rejected horribly or they're going to move on. Right?
Right. So that means you don't know.
Right.
See that, Erica? You see how you got to that?
So you're not interested in the story, in
I
the
just
backstory.
that show could be a half-hour show. Make it a half-hour show. Let's move on to the next show.
Just singing, or
When we-
whatever, talent.
So you have to understand. I grew up with the variety show.
Okay.
Okay, when I was a kid, they had variety shows like Red Skelton. You don't know these people. No. Ed Sullivan. You've heard of Ed Sullivan, the Beatles. Yeah. But they had a whole plethora. And anytime I get to use that word, I enjoy that.
It is a
they, had a
nice
whole,
word to use.
they had a whole plethora of variety shows. They did not have that garbage in between. It's as if they don't have anything to do. So they fill it in with, this stuff.
It's the reality TV
I know,
phenomenon.
it's lazy. It's, you ever watch Chopped?
Yes.
This is the one that disturbs me most.
Yes.
They always finish. They make it seem like the chicken is just going in the oven 1 second before the thing. Okay, stop it.
Do you?
Okay.
Do you think the ingredients are really secret ingredients?
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah, that's a normal thing in cook world.
Yeah.
Didn't you know that?
Well,
it's called the secret basket.
It just seems
the mystery basket.
It just seems almost
they put,
impossible. To
No,
me.
no. In almost every culinary show, there's a mystery basket competition. And that's the whole thing. You've got to be able to
pull it together.
put it together. Okay, but of course the people aren't talking to you and all that. But it's it's like every show, right before it's stop. Am I going to get the gravy on time?
Right.
No, you are. Okay, I've seen the show. I know the format. You're going to have the gravy.
Everyone will finish. Have you ever seen someone not finish?
Very rare.
Okay.
It's very rare. Very rare. So, so this annoys me. And then they and all they're doing really is this. So let's pretend we're on the cooking show. Okay. And I'm chopping up the dice. I'm dicing the onion. I'm dicing it. I'm putting it in. And then I dice the onion. Okay. That's what I do.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I hear you.
Isn't that what they do?
Yes.
Okay.
And you have too much time on your hands, clearly.
You people are being lulled by these people. I dice the onion, and I was dicing it really fast, and then I put it in the pot. I just saw you do that, And or they'll have like one of these confrontational reality shows where two women are like cat fighting each other, and so the woman will say like, "Well, you play with my man, I'll play with your man." And she came at me talking about if I played at her man.
We know that.
Now, I'm just going to say this to you. Reality TV is not going to be the same for you again.
No, you've ruined it for me.
Kendrick, you agree? You do you like reality TV? Okay, good.
Kendrick doesn't
Do you like
watch
anything, Kendrick?
reality TV.
Okay.
Kendrick has better
Let's
things
talk
to
to
do.
Kendrick. Kendrick, come on, man. Get on the mic. Okay, see that? We got to go to commercial break. And we don't, he's just making that up. All right, we go to commercial break. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Our guests this evening are going to be Michael Alexiou. He's an architect, or as we say in the Bahamas, architect. And we have Mr. Carl Palacios, who is an engineer, as we say in the Bahamas, engineer. And we're going to talk about, and it's good. I always like these shows because when we have these type of shows, like we had Timmy about the insurance, I'm like, how is that going to work for an hour? But of course, it was very entertaining.
It brings out the best.
I don't have as much knowledge about engineering and architecture as I do about insurance, but we'll see. Jackson Burnside used to tell me I was an architect.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
wow.
Mm-hmm. Jackson.
That's high praise.
Okay, Jackson. All right, so this ain't this is a serious thing. Now, so that's going to be fun. But now we have, before I get into that, I managed to touch base to Houston,
Right.
because that's as hard, okay, with Rogan, okay, like how when out in space we have a connection. So I managed to touch base with Rogan. She's in rehab. I've never been in rehab for anything.
Well, let's clear up what kind of rehab.
Well, she's in rehab for her shoulder. She had some
She's
surgery on
in
her shoulder.
Yes,
Yeah.
physical
Physical
rehab.
Yeah, physical
Because
therapy.
somebody listening to this would be like,
No, she's not a junkie or anything like that.
What kind of
But
rehab is she going?
but yeah, so she's doing well. She was pleasant when I spoke to her.
That's good.
It's always good to have pleasantness. Okay, all right. You know
Hi,
what I find
Rogie.
myself doing?
You think she's
Imitating Trump
listening? Oh.
all the time.
Why?
And
I
that's
mean, like when he
shaking.
does this
No.
pleasantness, I just feel like I'm always saying something like him now. But so yeah, she's doing well. So let's wish her well. I don't know when she's going to be back, because she has a shoulder thing. So it's a lot of
Yeah, it's she
any
needs
movement.
mobility and
You don't even want to laugh.
yeah. That's a very delicate area.
Yeah. So, having said that, we have with us Candy.
Hi.
It's like candy. I can feel it when you walk.
I don't think you should have your theme anymore. It makes me jealous. You have a theme. I don't have a theme.
But you have your opening thing.
But it's not a theme with my name or anything
And
like
your
that.
show, it's the
It
Ed
feels
Fields.
But it doesn't have. It's not singing my
What
name.
else do you want? Maybe you can get somebody to drum
No,
you
I'm
up
not.
a special.
I was joking.
Oh.
Okay. Now, so
Or
how are you
maybe not.
doing?
I was feeling a little flustered today, but I'm better.
Were you feeling like what sort of fluster?
Like, when you just here, there, and everywhere, and
Like an
doing this
FF?
and that. An FF?
Female fluster?
No. It's,
Okay.
you.
Just general fluster?
I don't want to even know what a female.
No, just
Or
the
female
things.
fluster?
You're doing a lot of things.
No, I'm just flustered.
Let me show you an example of female flustering.
Oh goodness, because men don't fluster.
No, we don't fluster like this.
Oh. I don't fluster like that either. Thank you very much.
I'm going to give that to you, Ed.
You're gonna give that to
I'm
me?
going to give that to you. Yeah, I'm going to give that
No,
one to you.
yeah. When I get that kind of flustered, I get the cussing.
Actually, she has a very neat bag.
Good.
Thank you very
It's
much.
all organized. Yeah. There's
Thank
not
you.
a general. You almost feel like with most women's bags, you could get cut. If you put your hand in, you know what I mean? If you put your hand in there, you don't know what's in there.
Yes, there might be tweezers, scissors,
you
something.
You can come up with blood.
So, some toenail clippers.
Yeah. So how are you doing?
Yes.
Other than fluster.
I'm good. I'm better now.
Okay.
Winding down from the day, and it's almost the weekend, so
It is good to have a end of day.
end of day wind down.
You kind of get through the day.
Do you have a end of the day wind down? Do you something every day that you do that helps you?
I was actually thinking about that, believe it or not, today.
Yeah.
Like when I got here, and because this is kind of like the last thing on the schedule. Mm-hmm. So it's a kind of a feeling of,
Yeah.
I made it.
Right.
And
But then
now
what do you do after the show? Like the ride home is you're like
No,
you
no.
coasting.
I'm getting ready to go horizontal now.
Okay.
And
So like
watch-
from the
and
show,
watch The
when you
Voice.
finish, right? You get in your car and it's just you go in from up here all the way
Going
down
from
until
vertical.
you straight.
Like I got to tell you this joke. This is a little. This is a relationship joke. So maybe it's a segue.
Okay.
I don't know. So when I first got married, I always got home before my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so I'm a horizontal fella. Okay, if I'm not working, if I'm not doing something, I'm flat. Mm-hmm. So I got home, Kendrick. You like this one, and I lay down. I was laying down.
On
Okay.
the couch.
No, in the bed.
In the bed. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So watching TV. So my wife came home. I don't think we had a housekeeper then. She came home and she said to me, "Why are you laying down? Why every time I come home you're laying down?" Which to me was a kind of I became flustered. I had a male fluster because I didn't know what she was talking about. So I don't get into those kind of discussions because I don't know I don't know what angle to come from.
Right.
See, you notice I talking to the mic from behind now. I don't know what angle to come from. So I think through it.
You can't see a clear.
No, I can't see a way out. Okay, so I think through it, and then I like to come up with something that is kind of like a deal closer. It's just this is a statement. It's clear.
Shut it down.
Shut it down. So the next day when she came home, because I was again horizontal. Okay, when she came home, I know when she was coming.
So you.
So when she came into the room, she met me standing up. Okay. I was just
And you
like
were
this.
standing
I was
there?
just like this. So she says to me, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, the only thing left is sitting and kneeling, and I thought they would be comfortable for you."
So wait, what I want to know is, did that put an end to it?
Dead, because you realize the options you have. Okay, you understand, Kendrick? You've got sitting, kneeling would be strange.
Yeah. It was
Okay. Okay.
unsettling.
If you came home and I was kneeling, you'd go, okay. All right. So kneeling, laying down, standing up, sitting. Sitting, I felt, was just as bad as laying down. It's a relaxed position.
Yeah.
Okay?
You're feeling too good.
Yeah, right. Okay, Candy.
Okay, Candy needs.
I never told you that?
Yes, It's just so funny. It is so
Because it's just there. It's okay. That was silly for me to say then, because, and in fact, she just ended up laughing because once she realized out of the 4 options,
What would you rather?
Usually, though. Just lay down.
yeah.
But Ed always comes up with these
So
good
she wasn't
comebacks.
saying like you should be cooking or you should be
Yeah,
doing
why you cook?
something.
It was just, I think she was in a female fluster and just didn't know what you're
yeah,
saying.
like what are you doing? Why are you
It's just,
chilling?
I'm home before you, that kind of thing.
But that's a good question, though. Did she cook? Did she have to cook when she came
No,
back?
I don't think so. I don't think it was about cooking. I think it was just like, you're home before me, more relaxed. I don't know what it was.
That's okay.
That's why I didn't confront her, because I didn't know what it was. I had run up against that before one time, and it was during Christmas, and she had gone to church. We had opened up all the gifts, and she had gone to church. I didn't go to church. So while she was at church, I decided, go into the closet, get the garbage bags, take all the wrapping paper, put it in the garbage bag.
That's helpful.
I thought it was a very
That's considerate.
considerate thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I was in a good funk. I was in a good place.
Right.
So I put the bag down. Now, when she came home and she saw me in the living room putting the paper in the bag, rather than saying, oh, hi, or something like that, the question that came out was, why is the closet door open and the box of bags sitting on the counter? Which is a complete 360 from what I was expecting. Okay?
You were expecting thank you.
Or nothing.
No.
Or nothing. You see what I'm saying? You don't need to do the thank you, but or nothing.
Right.
So what I did, and I'm going to say it on public radio because I know it's a little childish, but again, I'd like to try to highlight things rather than thing. So she went into the room and all that. When she came out again, all the cupboard doors were open. All. In the entire home. But I didn't say anything.
Right.
What I was trying to illustrate was, is it really that bothersome?
Right.
So that's how I don't want to get into the
And did she laugh?
laugh. Yes, it was
Good,
a
so
laughing.
you're lucky.
Yeah. You wouldn't have laughed?
Oh no, I probably would have laughed,
Yeah.
but some women would not have laughed.
But it's trying to say like,
She gets you.
yeah.
No, yes. I mean, no,
You wouldn't
I
laugh,
don't
Candy?
think anybody else could.
So you wouldn't laugh at it standing up?
I don't know what I don't
Okay.
know.
Well, that's my
I
segue
would have
into
laughed.
into the relationship thing.
Well, you kind of messed up my whole topic for today.
And what was
your
that?
topic?
Yeah.
Well, no, I was originally going to talk about, how we're celebrating, because I always come with,
Christmas?
something negative. Not even Christmas, but not negative, but, just celebrating how far women have come in terms of, accepting themselves, body image-wise, and just, in their role and their careers and all that other stuff. And then your boy over here
Standing up?
talking about what was that?
I know I'm laying down.
Right. No, what was it that you said, Ed?
What did I say?
And then I said, we're going to talk about that. Women are seeming to be less.
No, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that.
think
That's
we
not
should
generally
talk about
acceptable.
that.
I know it's acceptable. I know it's not. I don't want to talk about it.
No.
No, I have to
Okay.
live in the community. I don't wish to talk about it. Okay? See, you can only talk to certain people like that because what happens is people immediately get in a mode.
Mm-hmm.
They're not hearing anymore the rationale behind the point. Because, I'm not,
Okay.
it isn't meant to be derogatory.
No, I didn't
It's a
take
point.
it. That,
No, not
yes.
you. I know you didn't. It's a
Oh,
point of
you think
discussion.
other people will
yeah.
take
So
it.
there's certain things people aren't going to
Well,
understand.
we'll leave that alone.
Yeah.
We'll
you
leave
know.
that alone. So, okay.
I mean, the thing that the one thing you can't, and we've talked about it before, and this thing is about this. I'm really big on this value thing and this defining one's value the right way, and it doesn't just apply to relationships and women.
Right.
It's just in anything, and I think I think we just passed the point of being able to do it,
What defining
But-
value?
defining a whole lot of things.
But I wanted to get, and that's good. That's a good segue into even this real, kind of narrow down the topic that I wanted to talk about. So yeah, the value, right? We were talking about like in the workforce or women wanting to work and being out of the home and stuff like that. But now it's a different type of value. It's it's body image. It is like the way we view ourselves and the way we accept ourselves naturally, as opposed to allowing, I think we're living in a very exciting time.
You think so?
Yes,
I think
because
it's very
women.
complicated.
It's still complicated, but I think it's very exciting because we now have women setting their own standards of how they want to look. They want to be like, this is my natural self.
You mean like Alicia
I'm
Keys?
not going to get implants just because, men for a very long time have set
But what is
body
the big-
image for
what-
women.
I don't get the big deal with Alicia Keys. Well,
she
I
just
get the
doesn't
big
want to wear
deal.
makeup anymore.
I get that, but it's very telling that because she doesn't want to wear makeup anymore, that's a big deal. There are many women who do not wear makeup,
Right.
and they don't wear it because they don't want to wear it.
Right.
Like, it's not some huge statement. It's just
The only statement it
No,
could
but
be is that in her domain,
in her world,
That's
that's
a
what
big
she.
deal.
Yes, in her world,
You're supposed
because
to look
she
perfect.
is right. You have to be perfect, and when she does not wear makeup, it's a problem. Because
but she's lucky because she's not one of the ghastly ones.
But oh my gosh, Ed.
No, I'm
See
serious.
what I'm saying?
I've seen you some. No, there's some pictures, man. I
we
think
would
that
like-
those people went into their auditions with makeup. They
You
didn't go in
mean-
like that.
What you mean?
Well, the
okay.
transformation.
Yeah.
And that's
yeah,
a sad thing because it's not real.
There's some before and after shots that are pretty. They look miraculous.
Listen,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but makeup. I mean, that's paint. Like,
It is.
That is
It's
paint.
Bondo.
And it transforms. I mean, you look like a completely different person. And I think because people are so,
Insecure.
just no. They just wear makeup all the time. That yes, you see that there's a vast difference between their natural self and the makeup, and not necessarily meaning that they look ghastly.
Well, I'm saying in those cases.
But
they
it's
did.
just that
Women
that's
are-
you're comparing the two now.
But women are.
No, they were ghastly.
No,
but
they wouldn't have been
expected.
ghastly if you had not seen them with the makeup.
If you were
possibly.
accustomed to seeing them
If
in
you were
their
accustomed to
natural
seeing them in their
What's that?
natural state,
Well, no, because look, I have not seen Alicia Keys in her natural state before.
Right. I
But she didn't look. I'm just saying, there's some people. Forget about the gas. I don't want to get into that.
Right.
It's a major difference. Put it that way.
No
okay?
one's ghastly.
Major difference. Of course, no one's ghastly. Everyone's a 10. The thing
I
is,
didn't
what I'm
say
saying
that.
is, what I'm saying is,
we don't need scales,
yeah,
Ed.
what I'm saying is that she's decided that because her world of
Yes.
Hollywood and entertainment dictates how you should look. And
Right.
what is a good, and I'll tell you what's good about her message. Like Erica says, there are many people. You and Erica don't wear a lot of makeup. But there's not a lot of. I know this is going to come off bad, so I'm precluding this. There's not a lot of people looking at y'all.
Right.
to
no, I
define
agree.
them.
I agree.
Right.
I
Whereas,
agree
whereas,
with
whereas she,
Alicia.
because of her
Everywhere
status,
she goes, she's being pictured.
Right.
and people and women want to be like her because
Right.
she's a star and all that.
Yeah.
So what she's saying is, guess what? You can be a star and you don't have to look like me
Right.
or look in this perfect.
Right.
But Ed, even bring it local. Even bring it to your regular gals, them like us, right? We're not going out of the house with unshaved legs. We're not going out of the house with little hair on the arms. Oh, geez, let me go get the razor. We're not going out of the house with you understand what I mean?
Without the South American country,
South. Well,
I'm
there-
down to Urca move. I didn't want to say it directly.
yeah, there are two actually.
Yeah. There's another one.
Yes,
There's another South American
yes,
country.
Yeah.
Really?
What,
Yes,
Argentina?
in California. I said
No,
this
but
to
that's
you
not
before.
South America.
No, but I know what you're talking
What is
about,
it?
though.
What is the other country?
It's
No,
It's
called
even more?
Yes, it's
What, the
everything.
Malibu?
yeah, what is it?
California.
Oh, it's called the California?
Yeah,
And it's
everything.
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 Oh.
Anyway, but you see what I'm saying, Erica?
Yeah.
Would you walk out of your house with your legs unshaved?
Again,
She's saying it because her legs aren't shaved now, and you're freaking her out.
my-
No, I'm only kidding her.
No, but,
But-
I take your point, but I don't want to answer your question.
Like, I mean, seriously, like,
Because then I don't,
Well, people-
it's okay to walk out of your
Your
house
house,
with
yeah.
your legs not shaved.
But you
Right.
get into
or
a
your
mode.
armpits not shaved.
we just have been so conditioned.
I saw a woman recently with major armpit hair,
Major.
and I was
You were aghast?
I was a little freaked out, I have to
Okay.
tell you. And I consider myself pretty open
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah, yeah.
all sorts of things.
But you were a ghost.
But I was,
You know what?
was
I should do a
freaked out.
project. I'm gonna do a project.
You gone
Because
un-Brazilian?
sometimes like when you want to just run to
By
the
the way-
store and put on some shorts and be like, oh Lord.
Yeah, no, you can't. No, I
But
know.
by the
no,
way,
let me put
when
on these
did
long jeans.
When did the Brazilian thing take effect?
I'm
'Cause-
sorry, it's the porn industry.
Oh, okay.
Oh, is that what it is?
That's my only
Because
guess.
I don't know if this was normalcy when I was
No,
growing
I think
up.
that's my guess. Because think about it. In the 50s, I'm sure there was
George?
Bush.
Okay. No, you didn't have to say that. I just said George.
And I just said his last name. George W.
That's all you had to
Yes.
say. Everyone get it. Okay, you're crossing into like a well. Okay.
How did we get
Am I
It's all,
being
listen, you know
crossed
this
tonight?
this is the unwinding.
Right.
Yes.
This
Okay.
is the
I
unwinding.
This is
think
the
I'm
people-
unwinding a
this
little
is the
too
people,
much.
This is the people driving home and saying, I had a rough day, and look, they talked about George.
Right.
Okay?
W.
So, yeah.
Hopefully we made
No
some,
last name.
we made somebody
Right.
laugh.
That was a lot
and of course, now the
that
only
was a
big
lot.
pressure for you, Erica, is everyone's going to be looking at you like,
Yeah,
I wonder.
What's that?
Yeah.
Wonder
No,
what's
but I
under those
should.
pants.
You know what? I mean, I think yes. And I think
We
that's
gotta-
why I
we
said
gotta
it's.
have news?
Oh, okay, we have the
We're going
news.
to take the news. We'll come back. We'll do 5 minutes. And then we have Mr. Carl Palacios, pronounced Palacios, and Mr. Mike Alaxio. Okay? So we'll be back. We'll have fun with those guys. Yes, this is Ed Fields along with Erica Wells Cox and Candelaria Thompson. And I'm never going to look at Blanco the same way.
Hey, I don't think they use that kind. Though.
Okay, it's a special kind.
It's a special kind.
It's a BB.
Oh, what have I gotten myself into this evening?
Yeah, no. The world has taken a funny turn, hasn't it?
Yes. Aren't you enjoying it though?
No. It's too much stuff.
Are you scared?
Am I scared?
Yeah.
Well, I'm almost dead, so it doesn't matter. But there's just too much. It's too
And
much.
be the same one who lived till he's like
Yeah,
100
it's too much.
years
It's
old.
too many things. It's too many things going on. Okay, and I think that's why I'm pretty content because I'm pretty simple, man. I go to work, I go home, watch TV, get some rich tea biscuits, dunk them in the tea.
That's what you like, rich tea?
Yeah, I like rich tea.
Okay.
You don't like rich tea?
No.
Okay, well,
Oh,
that's no
I
problem.
don't mind rich tea.
Yeah, in the tea. You get in the tea.
I know, yeah.
Okay, that make it rich in the tea. so no, but the thing is, there's a lot of people, and just to get to your point, because you're heading out, is these things that first of all that people are spending money on, and then at the same time saying they're surviving.
Right.
But because people have marketed them to make them feel as if without this,
Right. They need them.
they're not whole, and it's just sad.
Or they're not attractive, or they're not beautiful, or
Yeah.
you know what? Ain't no man gonna want you if you don't
Yeah.
if you get this and
The BB.
and it's let's stop. Yeah, the BB.
Yeah. You haven't
And-
figured it out yet, have you?
Yes, I
Okay,
have.
Okay.
I don't know if the rest of the people have,
Yeah.
but
Well,
anyway,
we don't want them to figure it out.
I'm sure they will. They're smart.
No, it's all very modern. That's what I say.
Yeah, but I mean, it's what I going back to my original point. It's nice to see, women taking control of the way they feel attractive, they feel beautiful.
But by the way, and I know you like to
And-
focus, but guys I
Guys,
think
too.
are in worse shape.
You do?
Oh yeah.
Oh, but I think the standards in terms of good looks for guys, they can get away
no,
with a
no,
lot.
that's
No,
in the older echelon.
I'm trying to tell Ed.
Ed,
Men can
that's-
get away with a whole lot more. Look at you. I mean, not you.
Oh, yeah. Look at me. See, I get away with it.
No,
You old
not
dog.
you personally, Ed. I'm saying,
Yes, me
look
personally.
No, not you personally. I meant you as in the general you as
Yeah.
male,
okay.
right?
Look at me.
Yo,
Got it.
men can be hairy from head to toe.
No. Listen, a guy who is in his 20s,
I mean, hair's coming out of every
a
office.
guy who's in his 20s, they are under some real pressure.
Not really.
Yes,
No.
because they're competing for women, and they
And
have
women are competing for men.
Next time you go up, I know I'm not saying they aren't. I'm just saying that It's not all one-sided. You go out to next time you go out to a function, and look how the guys are dressing, and they want to be appealing. I mean, some don't care, but they want to be appealing. They're competing with their peers for affection and attention, and they feel that they have to look a certain way. They got to dye their hair a certain way, get a certain hairstyle. I'm telling you.
But I think
I
generally speaking,
yeah.
Ed,
You
the
lose that
pressure's
one.
not there for men the
Not
way
as
it is
much.
for women. I think men can.
Okay, so I'll meet you guys in the male bathroom.
Okay.
Because obviously you know how guys are feeling.
No.
See, I just threw it on you.
No.
I'm telling you as
okay.
a... Kendrick, help me out here. Because they're dismissing us.
I'm
telling
not,
you...
and I don't want to be dismissive.
No, I'm telling you that as a male... You know what? Let me give you a story. You know what a woman told me once?
What's that?
And I'm not going to say where she said it, but she told me that this is the truth. And she pointed to her privates.
Mm-hmm.
Someone got robbed for this.
I remember that.
Okay? Now, let me say something to you. When a human being, in order to get companionship or whatever it is that he wants, will rob for it, that's a problem. Okay? That's a problem that says why this person will do anything. You talk about what's the word you were using about self-image and all that. When you are willing to risk yourself going to jail, that's a problem.
Right.
So trust me when I say that
I agree
people are
with
under
that.
pressure.
I agree. Yes, it's a different type of pressure.
That's all. It's a different type.
different type of pressure, and I agree. Well, let's, hopefully
go.
we release all that. I'm going to start walking out my house without, shaved legs.
Yeah. Okay. And we'll
And
check.
we'll see how it goes.
See how it goes. But you're going to have to wear
And
pom-pom.
you know what? And I want a woman staring at me
Are
like,
you
you
gonna
don't
wear
think she
pom-pom,
can?
or you
I'm
gonna-
going to wear pom-poms.
Okay. All right.
Well, maybe not pom-poms because it's a little breezy, a little
drafty.
chilly, a little drafty,
It's a little
Okay.
drafty.
Yeah,
Cool. Lots.
But no, seriously, and I don't want any women because sometimes it's more so the women who you don't think she could have shaved her legs?
It's mostly the women.
Yeah.
No, I don't want any dirty looks. I don't want anything. I might lift up my arm and you might see some hair too.
Okay. Good.
How
But
about
you know,
that?
Well, there we are. That's where we are. We've defaulted.
Unfiltered.
Okay.
Raw.
Listen, we gotta go now. But
Yes,
listen,
okay.
Candy, thank you for sharing. It's
You're
always a
welcome.
portion. It's always a pleasure.
Those are your car keys.
Yeah, that's my key. And perhaps next week when you come, I'll maybe give you the triple edge.
I'll come in shorts.
A triple edge blade.
We want to inspect your legs.
I will.
All right.
All righty. Thanks
Be
all.
neat.
Or Harry.
This is going to be the best transition in the history of radio. Going from talking about the Brazilian to talking about building codes. They both start with B. Anyway, we have with us this evening Michael Alexiou, who's you're an architect, right?
Yes, I'm an architect.
Okay, yeah. I didn't know that. I never knew what you did. And we have with us Carlos
Sometimes I'm a
Palacios.
lawyer.
And he's an engineer. Yes, sometimes you're going to. Yeah. And we have with us Carlos Palacios, who is an engineer. And Erica Wells Cox. And, of course, Kendrick, who keeps things sane in here. But we're going to transition off because did you enjoy our conversation? Were you listening?
Actually, we were chatting.
Okay. Were you appalled?
Appalled at our own conversation?
No. Okay. You didn't hear anything we were saying at all?
Sorry.
Okay, never mind. Good.
We
Good,
turned,
'cause
we
we were
turned
talk-
our hairs off.
Yeah, because we were
Yeah.
talking bad about you, so I'm glad you
Yeah,
didn't
we
hear
figured
that.
that.
Okay.
All right, well, listen, I'm glad, first of all, thanks for coming by. And, we enjoy having you. We want to talk about something that, it's a topic that I think, the average person isn't going to be thinking like, I'm going to go home today and I'm going to talk about building codes and building standards. But it's stuff people need to know. A couple of weeks ago we talked about insurance and it was quite thrilling. So we just had Hurricane Matthew. And I think what it exposed for people in New Providence, because people in the Family Islands may have been understanding this for quite a while, is that we might just be in some serious jeopardy in terms of the practices we currently adhere to, in terms of building standards, how we build on the coast, all that stuff. Now, I just ask you guys, professional opinion, if we had a direct hit in Nassau from Category 4, having worked in the field for many, many years, do you think that we would have survived it to the extent that we survived the storm as we did?
Well, I mean, some parts of New Providence got hit quite hard, and the southern part, some parts of the southern part got flooded, and it exposed weaknesses in our building regulations. I think, mostly in the coastal regions. I think, which is why I think I asked Carlos to be here because. He's an engineer that's done a lot of coastal research, and I think he can add a lot to the conversation.
Yeah. Sure, I would say, Ed, honestly, and we do a lot of work and travels throughout the Caribbean as well, just so we can get there various benchmarks and get a feel for what's happening around. Believe it or not, we have some of the best building codes actually in the region. Most of our codes, especially related to coastal design, reference more severe manuals. So, for example, we design to American standards. In the Bahamas, our wind design is 180 miles an hour. So that's our design. So if you design according to the code, that's what you're following. Right. And of course, we know that a category 5 is above 157. So finding yourself within the sphere of our code will put you in a very good place.
I understand, in fact, post Andrew, that the codes in South Florida or pre-Andrew were worse than the codes here.
Worse,
and they actually went...
Yes, they and Dade County went very, very stringent, very, very tough. And so we now reference Dade County as being the ultimate. So talking about the flooding part of our code and the coastal part, and our codes being equal to other areas in the U.S., that's correct, except when it comes to the elevation that we have to build at. We still don't control the height that we have to build at above sea level. And other than new subdivisions, the road has to be, I think, 5 feet.
Yeah, so 5 feet above mean sea level is the center of the crown of the road. And then you're 1.5 feet above that. So essentially you're 6.5 feet above mean sea level, which is much too low for a coastal community.
How should it be?
It honestly should. So let's back up a bit then. For example, let's use Florida as the example. There's something in Florida called a coastal construction control line. So all that means is they model their entire state and they determine under what category will what area flood. So you now know if you live in a wetland area, let's say somewhere in the back of New Providence, that you probably need to be at 10 feet. Right. Whereas, let's say if you live up on the ridge on the western or eastern part of New Providence, which is higher on the northern
you're
coast,
already at 10 feet.
You're already at 10. You're probably up at 15 feet. So you can then be a foot above the crown of the road and you'll be fine. Right. So it's understanding that the unique geometry and geography of the island is what has to dictate where you should build. Right. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing. Right.
Well, also, if you do end up building in low areas, because we have a lot of inland areas that are low and are basically at sea level. I mean, you have to understand that really you should elevate your house or your building. Now, some of the arguments that come in is, well, that'll make it too expensive for Bahamians to build, and there's a counter argument to that. Which is what is more expensive, to build it correctly first or to pay the price after? And also, if you build a house and you have a mortgage, the bank requires you have hurricane insurance, which itself is expensive. Right. So,
I mean, let me. I want to go off of building codes for a second. Just talk about just general standards. Now, I'll give you an example. They're on the way to Fresh Market. What is it called? Fresh Market?
Sullivan Fresh Market?
Yeah. Out by the airport.
Yeah.
They just raised the road because the road was below or level of the wetland.
By the airport.
By the airport. You know, the airport runway? Now, I look at that, and obviously it was a rush job because it was very flooded out there. But they didn't have any culverts. They didn't have any, it would have seemed to me you have this big open field by the airport. You could have put a swale in there and have a culvert running to it. So when the wetland floods, it rolls into a swale. I mean, these are the things that are costing us more money not doing it correctly. Isn't that right?
Correct.
And we do need things like disposal wells. We know Pinewood, for example, floods. So we could put in place a full drainage plan for the community of Pinewood that helps to address the flooding issues.
Right.
So it's not that these things can't be engineered, but where do we want to spend the money? You see, so if
Well, we're spending a lot of money
we do spend a lot of
in
money.
repairs and damage.
So if we're spending the money on the tail end, then we're spending it on the Band-Aid rather than trying to avoid the cut in certain areas.
When you get certain areas like Pinewood and certain areas, when the water table rises to above the street level, you can't drain it because you can't
There's nowhere
flush
for it to go.
above the sea the water level.
But when you look at, so for instance, let's look at South Florida as our benchmark, right? So you go into these communities, like I'm thinking Western Florida for some reason, okay? And you see these townhouse gated communities, right? And they have a nice big lake in the middle of the thing, okay? That isn't a lake. You know, they dug that out for the purposes of drainage.
Well,
I mean,
we have that here. If you're
But
doing
do
a
we do- but
subdivision,
do we do that?
We call them
we do.
retention
We do
ponds. Retention ponds. We have them in certain communities. And a part of it, too, is understanding that if you grade the land properly, when you come from an initial land planning and land use perspective, which is something we still need to do. And a part of it, too, is cities such as in the United States, Fort Lauderdale, et cetera, were well planned out. So their expansion was well planned out and understood. Nassau sort of evolved a bit haphazardly. So as a result, we suddenly need homes.
You can't retrofit.
And we have a limited amount of space here.
Right.
And a lot of New Providence is wetlands. We forget that. I mean, when you fly over and look all on the western side of New Providence, even what we call it the west, is really the central of the island.
Right.
Because most of it is wetlands. So cheap land is just putting dirt in the in wetlands and building, unfortunately.
But isn't there even in places where that have wetlands a practice, a plan in terms of how to build in that? So if you're digging out the wetland, you use a fill to elevate the land around it, so the land around it is higher than the actual. I mean, no one wants. Let's put it this way: environmentalists would prefer you not to build in the wetland in the first place. But if you're going to get permission to build in a wetland and get a subdivision or a development, then there should be a standard as to how you're going to treat the people who later are having to deal with this.
Well, there's two aspects. One is global warming aspect, which I don't think we're getting into tonight, and the other aspect is flooding during a storm, and so really flooding in a storm, you want your building to be at a certain elevation, and perhaps propped up on stilts or some kind of nice open area at ground level to allow the water to flow through.
And how much, you know, you talked about expense, right? But how much more expensive could it be? I'm just asking. If you put, you know, I'm making a number up, right? 20 concrete columns versus a flat, you know, that are 10 feet tall versus a 3 foot tall foundation that covers the whole base.
Well, you might increase your foundation cost, let's say, by 30% of so your foundation cost. But let's remember too now, we also have to sort of build within our means too. So over time, we've chosen to go with very pretty houses on the inside necessarily, but not focusing as much on the shell and on the safety, etc. It's, you know, it's like when we go and we have a choice of buying hurricane impact windows that are rated for a category 5, but we buy hurricane impact that are rated for a category 1. So when the category 3, 4, or 5 comes along, our windows get blown in. You see, so it all comes down to spending, right? And it comes down to risk. And that's really a lot of it. And so we have to understand what's most important, not only to us, but as a nation, and guide our legislation, et cetera, in that direction.
But isn't your engineering? Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, I also talked to the some people in the insurance business because, again, is it more expensive to build? Yes, it is more expensive to build because you have to build a floor in the air versus a floor at ground level, and so then, but then if you go get a mortgage, then you have to pay a higher insurance because you have to have hurricane
Right.
insurance
Right.
for the bank.
Right.
Requires you to have higher hurricane insurance.
Right.
And so I talked to insurance people, and they are really pleased to hear that there's a coastal study being done, and they like the idea of elevated buildings that flood.
That reduces
for
the
flood,
risk to them.
because that mitigates their costs and all that, and so this person was particularly interested in this conversation.
Okay.
And meeting with engineers and seeing the reports and coming to some to discounts and credits and money, not so high premiums
Right.
for people who do the right construction.
Okay.
That's what we've been working on for the last 9 months, actually.
All right, well, we're going
policy
to
for that.
take a break. We'll come back. I want to pursue that line of thought more. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here, along with Carlos Palacios and Mike Alexio. Erica Wells Cox is our guest host this evening, guest co-host, and Kendrick Williams is on the board. You know, it's funny. You know, we talk about, you know, you have these subjects that we're talking about now, like building codes and insurance, etc. And you know, ordinarily you'd be locked in some sort of mode of basically discussing the norm, right, and the way that we do things traditionally. But this seems to be applicable in all aspects of our life in the Bahamas, right, where things that could advance us, could reduce costs. You look at energy issues and all these sort of things. We somehow seem to be resistant. So the question I'm asking you is, when you look at our building code and you talk about combining that with building to correct risk, right, or to diminish risk, are there things in the building code that restrict you by making sure that you adhere to a traditional building code, that restrict you from using other methods that would be more cost effective and at the same time reduce risk?
I would say this. We are a very conservative people when we choose to be. And I would say in terms of advancement and using new types of systems, things that we don't understand, listen, my grandpa been building for the last 60 years, and he been doing it this way. That tends to be how we think. And as a result, at times it is more challenging to bring more innovative construction styles to the country. At the same time, a lot of the systems, because a lot of times as engineers, we get presented with various projects with new building systems, and a lot of them don't meet our code. But developers, to save money, are still interested in trying to build them here. So then it's up to us as well as the permitting agencies to show why this system does not fit in a coastal zone like the Bahamas. So in fairness to the system, it does have a lot of safeguards in place, but sometimes that inhibits innovation.
Because the inverse of that is, if you got houses out at Adelaide or Southern Shores or wherever the flooding occurred, right? In theory, the code just does not meet what should happen in those areas.
Exactly.
I mean, they should have been mandated that they were built up.
Correct in terms of
Elevation.
elevation, and Florida had this flood elevation code regulation for the last 20, 30 years. I mean, you had to build up to a specific height in a particular area. They would dictate the height that you'd have to build to, and we don't do that. And that you go to Biscayne Bay and you see some lovely homes, or in other places in Florida. You see them elevated, or the expensive homes elevated, and they're very attractive. And it's you create a nice open space below, and the house is protected from flooding.
What I would say is this, Ed, and this is what we've been working on for the last 9 months. The government, through the IDB, approved a loan where we would do the coastal zone management policy framework for the country. So we finished that in September, and that is the first step towards getting the legislation. So it's a policy framework to outline the laws that we think are needed to set things like what Mike said, to say this area is where the minimum elevation should be. So if you are beyond this point seaward, let's say whether you're in Mangrove Bush or West End or some communities that we know are high risk, you can't build below this line.
Okay, Eric,
And I think, sorry.
No, I mean, I just wanted to come back to the point that Mr. Alexia was making about climate change. And so we're seeing the effects of climate change, and we're also seeing the vulnerability of these areas that are in low-lying communities. So how are we going to make an adjustment for that in terms of building codes and the coastal studies? Is that something that your study is taking into account?
Yes. So adaptation is the biggest part of it. We can tell you with high levels of confidence that we are going to become climatic refugees as Bahamians. And a climatic
Will I be dead then?
You probably will be,
Okay, good.
unless you find some stem cell thing
Not
to
looking
keep you
for it.
going
No,
or
I wanna
clone
be dead.
yourself.
Not
Okay.
interested.
Well, you should be. You'll
Me
be
and
gone
Mike could
then.
be dead, yeah.
So within the next few hundred years, and just to put
good.
it in
My kid will be
context,
dead too then, good.
80% of the Bahamas is only 5 feet above mean sea level.
Right,
5
right,
feet.
yeah.
And within the next 100 years, we'll have about 3.5 feet of sea level rise.
Right.
So give us
So-
200 to 300
so
years.
basically gone.
The majority of our country will be underwater. I mean, that's a fact.
Yeah.
There's no question about it. And even if we cut down the carbon emissions, this is a cycle that happens in the world.
Yeah.
We go into climate change, and we have global warming, and we have ice ages. That's a fact. So what are we going to do to be prepared for that? I mean, within the next 20 to 30 years, the level of coastal erosion we're going to see in this country will be unprecedented. That's a fact
Well,
as well.
you know, I just saw something the other day on, I like to watch these things. Whole towns in New Orleans and places along the Gulf have had to be relocated. Yeah. Whole towns.
They're underwater.
Because they're underwater. They can't get to their homes. But you talk about that, and again, I'm concerned about my 203-year-old, brothers and sisters, future brothers and sisters, right? But is it possible to build and to adapt where you could be living above water? Because we can't really go anywhere. I don't know if
There are many
I don't know if
cities
Trump
below
is going to let us in. Huh?
There are many cities below water, below sea level.
Okay.
New Mexico is below mean sea level.
Okay.
A
Holland.
lot of the Netherlands is below mean sea level. A lot of Venice and other parts of Italy.
Yeah,
So-
so-
Problems that we have here, though, is we have very porous rock. So,
comes up.
as Dr. Richard Kent said, we're going to be we won't be flooded from the coast because the coast is generally the sand dune that's a higher dune. The interior of the islands are generally the lower areas, and the sea level rise will begin from the interior of the island and
Wow.
flood us out.
Wow, I didn't
from the
realize. I mean,
interior.
you always think about, okay, I live inland, so I'm going to be okay. You're saying that's the first
Well,
place to go?
you could be inland and still be at water table level. I mean,
Yeah.
Because the
you
water
see that
table
you see
moves
that a
with
lot.
the sea level.
The water table is
Scary stuff. So now we've had the hurricane. So that's one of those scenarios where you've had the warning. You said that our last building code adaptation or modification was like 2003.
Yeah.
Was this warning, because let's face it, and let's be frank with each other, at the end of the day, we're talking about regulatory entities here, okay, government. Do you think that government agencies are now realizing we need to move quickly on this? Because in theory, not another house, this is in theory, not another house should be allowed to be built knowing what we know now in a low-lying area.
Well, I think that we've never really had a proper industry-wide sit-down conversation about all of this. I mean, we're talking about architects, engineers, builders, suppliers, insurance, banks. I mean, we should, in government, the building control, ministry works, we should have a sit down and chat about what is happening and what we should be planning to do.
But isn't this, Mike? I know we like to have those big meetings and those big conferences, but to the point that Carlos was making, with the studies and all that. There are benchmark places that have already gone through this, right? I mean, if you go along the Gulf Coast of the United States, places like Jacksonville, the Mobile, Alabama, these places, they're already employing these codes, right?
Well, can I be honest, Ted?
Yes, sir.
Honestly, when we are behind
first of all,
the eight
I
ball.
don't want to say no, you can't be honest.
Okay,
But I'll say yeah.
thank you. We're behind the eight ball in
Yeah.
comparison to other countries of our size.
In the region as well?
At our risk level, we are probably the riskiest when it comes to taking these coastal issues seriously. Belize, Barbados, etc., they've had coastal zone management units for the last 20 to 30 years.
And we don't have any?
and we chose
Why?
not to because other priorities from our nation's leaders took precedence over the years over dealing with coastal issues. A large part of that is because it takes so much energy and effort to run our country as an archipelago. Let's remember that now.
Yeah.
Most of these other places are
They're
one
one
land
landmass,
mass,
yeah.
right? So you have one shoreline. Let's just think about that, right? In comparison to us, where we have multiple ports, multiple seaports, multiple beaches, multiple wetland environments, the Bahamas is one of the most
It's a disastrous
diverse
place to manage,
habitats
yeah.
in the world
Yeah.
for a country. And we have a very small population in comparison to what it takes to run our country.
Right.
We could easily have millions of people and we'd have almost the same level of infrastructure needed, airports in every island, etc. So when you look at that, it takes so much to focus on that, resources, time, money, etc., that it has not been a priority. But the discussions now started. So we're
But
starting
you'd think
now.
that you'd think then it's not a priority, but then the problem is, how do we prioritize things? Because
We haven't had a bad hurricane in Nassau for a long time.
Yeah.
So if you haven't had one, right, and you
Yeah.
have to spend money on hospitals and schools and other things, and we're a praying nation, so we haven't had a hurricane,
Yeah.
then it's just not been a
yeah,
focus.
praying is very cheap.
Now there must be a focus. Though.
Yeah, I would think, because let me tell you, I mean, I know that people out at Lyford Key and other areas in the south and southwest and Bahamas got hit pretty hard. Mostly wind, not so much water, but a lot of wind, but because there was more of a direct hit. If that had moved, 10 miles to the east, it could have been disastrous. Absolutely. So I think now, are you finding that you're getting the attention of the authorities in terms of we need to start being serious about what we do going forward? I mean,
I would certainly hope so. The other part I mentioned the other day is we should have hurricane education at lessons at school. We should teach our kids what hurricanes have passed through the Bahamas, what they've done, so that they are aware of it. No, I mean, really, no one really knows that in the 1929 hurricane, seawater came all the way from the south to Fox Hill Circle. I mean, no one knows that.
yeah, because it wasn't
We should
recorded,
know
but-
that.
yeah.
We should know that these things happened. So
Let me ask you, your duties or your obligations as professionals. Well, this is like funny static in my ear, but anyway, as coastal professional, not as coastal, as professionals in the field. If I come to Mike Alexio, regardless of what the code is, my architect, shouldn't you be? Shouldn't you be saying, no, this is how you have to build your house?
I actually got asked by somebody to go see a piece of property at Ocean Club, the Narrows Beach.
Right.
And he said, well, what would you do? So I said, well, the first thing I'd do is I'd build up there. I'd go up about 15 feet up, and I'd start up there. And so I never heard from him again. So.
Yeah, and that means even, and I'm familiar with Ocean Club Estates, for instance, that you have to even change the covenants, which allow certain heights, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's the other part. I mean, is when they set the elevation of the property, and you're told it's whatever elevation it is, you really got to ask as a purchaser. You got to ask yourself, what are they saying the datum is, and find out what the datum is, because sometimes the datum is 3 feet below high tide, and so when you get a spring, which we did in Hurricane Matthew, we had the full effect of of it passing New Providence right at springtide, high tide. And so you really got to understand what it is you're buying, what elevation they're telling you you're buying. So,
are there different building codes for residential, commercial? And the reason why I ask that is, it happened obviously during the hurricane. There was a building, a warehouse or something going up on Bernard Road that was under construction, and basically it was blown down. It was pretty destroyed. And I wondered are the building codes, does it depend on if you're building a warehouse or a home, or how does that work?
There is an importance factor that is applied to your load calculations, and that importance factor is dependent on the occupancy type. Which varies depending on if it's a warehouse.
So if there's a warehouse for goods, it doesn't matter as much.
It's less risky. But that still doesn't mean it should blow down, though.
Yeah.
So
a building under construction, if the concrete isn't poured and the belt beam isn't tied,
it's not a complete system.
It's not a system
Anyway.
that is under risk of getting blown. Yes,
exactly. Sure. Exactly.
Well, we're going to take a break. We'll come back. We'll wind up with what are the next steps. What should people do? Who, in a retrofit scenario, because that's really the biggest problem is people who already have made the investment. How do they go back and protect their properties? We'll be right back. I just received an engineer and a lesson in wind shear and the doubling of pressure, et cetera, et cetera. This thing really excites you people, doesn't it? I can see it does.
Well, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It would be good to have the whole industry together, because I was just talking to somebody that supplies timber, and he had a client that wanted to build models of the units they were going to build and do wind tests, tunnel tests. And they found that with large overhangs, the wind will come under the overhang, hit the wall, and then it's got to have someplace to go, and that will increase the pressure by 50% higher than what it is already.
It's crazy.
And then when it whips around the fascia board, it actually whips around at double the pressure.
Double pressure.
Double the pressure of what it is everywhere on the building. So, which actually means a slight overhang of the roof, if it's not well tied down, that would easily rip it right off.
So, and all we have is fascia boards and easements.
So
and
that's why you see older buildings that don't have large overhangs on the main roof, and they have a molding that would actually direct the wind off of the overhang. Okay. And the porches were add-ons. They were not part of the main roof. They were meant that if they ripped off, they didn't affect the main structure.
Okay, all right. That's how it was designed.
What's the best kind of roof to have in this sort of environment? I mean, because you see the Bermuda roofs, and then the roofs with the shingles and the architectural shingles and the wooden shingles, or the metal roofs. Is there one in particular that fares best?
There's pros and cons to each system, and all of them can be built to meet our code. Some people use tiles, some people use shingles. Obviously, they blow off in a storm, but unlike, let's say, the aluminum panels, a whole section of your roof doesn't blow off. You lose one or two one or two shingles. So in a hurricane, so it all depends on your first cost too. It varies, but they all work within our systems here in the Bahamas.
And it depends on the installation, of course. It has to be installed correctly.
Yeah. Speaking of which, because we were talking off the air about repairs after the hurricane. So there's two elements we want to kill before we go, and that is, I live in a house. I'm being rhetorical, on the southern part of the Bahamas, in a low-lying area. I got flooded. I had 3-4 feet of water in my house. What do I do to protect my home going forward, knowing that thing is going to come? And not only can it come from the surge, but you said it can actually come from beneath.
as well as from the sky in terms of rain.
Rain.
Personally, if I lived in the southern Bahamas and my whole family's from Inagua and portions of Inagua did flood as well, I would honestly apply to the government for some crown land and from some opportunities to relocate. And I think that should be a part of our legislation moving forward because certain areas in our country we shouldn't build in. And I know that might sound very crude, but in all honesty, if a hurricane came in 2016 and flooded your property to 3 or 4 feet, in your lifetime, it will probably happen again.
Well, I know in, is it Crown Bluff, I think it is, in, or I forget the name, Crossing Rocks in Abaco, they lived on the sea, and they were all wiped out. And when the government did help to rebuild, they built them way inland.
Well, in West End, some of the houses that were destroyed in previous storms were rebuilt by the government. And when we visited after Hurricane
Matthew, same location?
They were in the same location. They were 500 feet away from their foundations. So those houses got washed away again. If we have to learn from our own mistakes, and there are, like Mike said, you can build your house much higher, and we see that the houses built on stilts did last. The ones that were built closer to grade, when the water comes through, it just washes it away.
Well, I also think we should give serious consideration to allowing prefabricated homes in
Inland areas?
so that. Well, into the country, I mean, that are completely finished inside and try to save on and give duty concessions because some of these structures, let's say container homes, you look at some of the finished container homes and they're actually beautiful.
And I've seen whole communities of them.
You see whole communities done in other places.
I mean, if you're going to live in an apartment, which you're renting in the first place. I mean, what's the big deal of what the walls are made of? You just want to,
It's nicer to have a nicely built container home built safely than to have a home built in a low level cheaply that is prone to getting flooded over and over again.
And this is what I was talking about earlier in terms of these are more cost efficient options.
Yeah, it's innovative solutions for us to be creative. And we also need to understand that the first thing people ask me oftentimes is, well, the water was in my backyard, it was rough, so should we build a seawall? That's not always the response. Let's put in another man-made structure. We have to look at working with the environment, looking and zoning and planning, and also making sure that the types of structures we're putting in, for example, pile structures versus slabs on grade and flat structures that are just sit on the ground. So we have to make sure it's a holistic approach.
Seawalls are the first reaction of somebody that's living on a beach. But the seawall is the worst thing that you can do for a beach. It will
erode the beach.
Absolutely erode a beach. Because the forces hitting the seawall will just take a beach away.
It's the opposite of what you were talking about, the wind. The water hits that wall and it's more energy.
Right.
When it hits the sand.
Yes. I've seen places that built seawalls and immediately they lost all the sand.
Yeah. When you talk about the coast, so I'm being Nassau-centric. There's a lot of people on the south, especially the southern coast. I mean, obviously on the northern coast as well. Ironically, we tend to get storms more from the northern coast. This one actually came from the south. But how realistic is it for that sort of planned relocation? Given the landmass we have, given the space, can we look at it as an opportunity? When I drive in these areas like Yamoussoukro, etc., I see coastal regions that have been, in my view, just malused. That's the only word I could come with. Just not enough planning. It's just helter skelter. Can this now be an opportunity to say, okay, you know what? In order to protect everyone, in order to protect the dunes, the wetland, whatever, this is an opportunity to redo this thing, and then to have a fresh start in those areas that are safer.
Yeah, and so the thing about the southern Bahamas, southern side of New Providence is it's actually meant for the water to drain there.
Right.
If you notice, the
That's
northern
all
coast is
protected.
high,
Yeah.
and water always finds the lowest spot.
Right.
So you're raining on the northern side, it's running down Blue Hill, etc., into the southern part of New Providence. You now have winds and waves blowing it from the south, and you have rain from the top. So it's a recipe for disaster in the long term. So honestly, if you live in the south, you already have a house, and you know that in certain conditions, let's say even just a heavy rain, you have water near your doorstep. That means in a hurricane, you probably need to get out of there. So I would honestly say this: you just have to be prepared. You have to be prepared. So, for example, if you're about to remodel your house, let's raise your electrical outlets higher. Let's make sure that you always have sandbags in place. And there are some temporary systems that the U.S. Army Corps has made to help with flooding, and they've actually protected some homes during Katrina, etc. They're these giant, like, canvas bags that you can fill with sand, and you can actually make a bowl around your house. Believe it or not, an entire bowl. And the floods are going past, and your house is in the middle of the bowl. So there will have to be creative ways for persons who already have built in these areas. But the sad thing is, a lot of people are still starting to build now. So where do we go moving forward? Do we make sure that the proper zoning requirements and restrictions are in place so that those minimum elevations are made?
Because that's a lot of sandbags around the house.
A lot of sandbags
you got to
around
go
the
up
house.
to like 3-4 feet around the whole house.
Exactly.
Just the storage for those sandbags alone will kill you.
Even in New Orleans, for example, and parts of the Louisiana Gulf, they're used to flooding. The Mississippi River floods, and so they know that potentially their house will flood. And what do? They use furniture that actually is water resistant, and they raise electronics off the ground. So they've accepted in certain communities that our houses are going to have 3 feet of water in it. So we prepare for that.
Okay. All right.
Gas stoves, etc.
All right. Mike, what's your closing argument on this thing? We got 2 minutes left.
Generally, our codes. I've talked to several people in that really are close to the code system. Generally, and have done a lot of reports on damages. Generally, our codes are correct. If you're building in good, solid ground, elevated ground, generally our codes are correct.
And we tend to think in these hurricanes, we tend to think more in terms of wind. And so from a wind perspective, I think most of us feel fairly safe. It's that water that we're not really thinking about a lot. And that was a newly introduced thing in Matthew, I think, don't you think?
And water doesn't necessarily have to be on the coast. I mean, if you on a bowl area, you live in the low spot of a subdivision where everything drains to your property. Right. You're susceptible to flooding.
Yeah, and we know areas like Winton and Vancouver, those areas where it's below the ridge. Well, listen, we learn a lot, and there's a lot. The one thing I would think that hopefully the Bahamians and my fellow folks who listening is that preparation is key. But you have now another 6 to 8 months before the next hurricane season. You're rebuilding if you're living in the southern part of New Providence, moving outlets. This is the time to do it. Don't wait till June to do it.
The persons who are doing the repairs on your house, I was driving by the other day and someone had a sheet of plywood. The guy was up on the roof and he put 4 nails in one side. And so you make sure the people who are doing your repairs, even though you want to get it patched up quickly, are doing it and are qualified to do it. Because in the next hurricane, you'll be in that same new sheet of plywood you just put on will fly right back off.
All right. Well, listen, guys, thanks a lot. Mike, Carlos, thanks for stopping by. And yes, we're live, Mike, and you made it.
Thank you.
All right, man. Thank you, Erica. Thank you. Kendrick, we'll see you on Monday.